Good Vach, everyone. Motzei Shabbos, Truma, Sichos Haran, and supurey Baal Shem. So, I heard something really, really nice that really illuminated, was like really opened things up for me. Reb David Gewirtzman from Breslov here in Gimel, he spoke about, V'chulu Truma. This is a well-known, the wording of that particular opening is strange because it says, V'chulu Truma, and they will take a donation for me. That first of all, it's usually a donation is when the giver has more than the receiver, and the idea of the donation is to change the state of the welfare of the one who receives. But obviously, here we're talking about a getter, a receiver, as it were, that owns everything, and Lia Kesef Elia Zov, he owns all the gold, he owns all the silver. So even what we have, he owns. So it's a very unusual, state of giving, like holy truma. So the question is, obviously, each one gives, zov, kesef, and whatever it is that's generosity of the heart. But the interesting point that was made by Rav Gewirtzman was, there was a joke that Rabbi Yankele Galinsky, Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha, used to, he says that today, everything is about me. It's li, it's to me. It's bisli, kinli. Everything is to me. Everything is. He says, in the olden days, it used to be lach. It used to be to you as a rogal lach, kneda lach. Everything is, everything is like to you. The lemaisa, the most powerful urge controlling people's lives is that li, mine, to me. It's like a suction system that sucks in everything towards me. It's money, it's attention, it's whatever it is. But it's not just money and attention. The result of not getting are represented and expressed in anger, in sadness, in depression. Anger, depression, and sadness are also an expression of li, to me. On the negative side, if I don't receive it, therefore I get upset, or therefore I get angry, or therefore whatever it is. Because Baruch Hu said, "V'ikhu li truma," let them take, give me, donate to me a truma, what should they give? Should they give a little bit of the li, of to me? That personal, self-centered, the entire universe revolves around me. Give some of it away. Give some of it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, obviously, it can be, when you give somebody, some money to help them out, or, when people say something that is offensive, just don't say anything, remain quiet, because that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted me to do. And obviously not hurt other people with hurtful speech. But take it another step further. And that is when you feel down, you feel sad, you feel pained, especially in relationships, accept it as a form of giving. What does it mean? It is a very common thing for married people, for the wife to say something to the husband which make him face his own inadequacies in a very uncomfortable way. I mean, this is the closest person in the world to you. This is the most intimate relationship between you and your wife. And nobody knows you better than she does. So when she needs to sort of balance herself, or whatever it is that she's doing, she's telling me something that makes me feel very uncomfortable. The natural tendency is, because I have, I resist. I don't want to feel that kind of feeling. So I resort to anger or some kind of subterfuge in order to get out of the conversation. Like, what about me? Yeah, but what about you? I mean, they did this because you do this. And basically, you're being a taker. You're being a li man. Everything to me. In effect, you're being a woman. Don't do this. The biggest gift that you can give, either your wife or your parents or your siblings or your children, is the gift of not shying away from feeling of discomfort, especially when they have a point. And they usually do. The way of being a man is not resisting feelings of belittlement. The way of being a man is to give your spouse the gift of being able to tell you things that make you feel uncomfortable. And what are you doing with those feelings? By accepting them, by accepting those feelings, meaning I agree to feel that. I agree to feel uncomfortable. I agree to feel belittled, whatever it is that makes me feel. With this, you are giving a Kodesh Baruch Hu a little bit of your li to me. This kind of sense-salted vacuum, never satisfied vacuum. That everything is for me, for my sake, and for my betterment, or whatever. It's all about me. Like they say, famous story about the couple that meet on the shidduch, and the boy speaks about himself for about half an hour non-stop or more, and then he says, "Okay, but enough about me." He tells, uh, "What about you? What do you think about me?" So with that, Bezat Hashem, let's go to the Baal Shem Tov story of this week. This is a story of Shlom Bayis. The Baal Shem Tov was known, obviously, Ahavas Yisrael. One Friday, he asked some of the Talmidim to go and look outside in the market for a guest for Shabbos. So they went around, they couldn't find anyone. Baal Shem Tov said, no, you have to go, you have to find someone. We have to find a guest for Shabbos. Well, the hours are passing, Shabbos is coming, they cannot find anybody who is willing to be a guest for Shabbos. So, being that Baal Shem Tov said, so Baal Shem Tov says you do. So they're going outside of Mezhibosh by the intersection, and they see, a Jewish guy coming, carrying a very heavy sack on his shoulder. So Talmid Baal Shem asked him if he's willing to be a guest by the rabbi, the Baal Shem Tov, Shabbos. And the person was, he was knocked over. He was like, whoa, unbelievable, of course, what a nes, what a schos. And besides the fact he didn't have where to stay for Shabbos, but just about Baal Shem Tov, can you imagine? Well, so he came to Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov received him, Ser Panim Yafas, great simcha. The first Shabbos Sudas was, tremendous Baal Shem Tov, Then came the Rav Davin Suda Shlishis, and they sang Nigunim, and in the middle of the Suda, between one Nig and the next, the Baal Shem Tov asked that each one of the Talmidim will say a Pesach Torah. Well, there were 60. Baal Shem Tov has 60 Talmidim. It's a Shishim Giberim with the Baal Shem Tov. So you went to the one from right to find the Torah, and each one of them will say Al Pi Seder. He says something and they went like this all the way to the last, which was that guest that came for Shabbos. Obviously, the Torah of the Talmid Baal Shem, the Maggid of Mezrich, was they told us it was absolutely unbelievable. So when comes the turn of that guest, Baal Shem says, "No, Acharon Chaviv, let's hear from you." He says, "Well, Rabbi, open, Ptach Pi Chaviv Dvarecha, go ahead, illuminate us." So the guest was very embarrassed, and he said, "He doesn't know what to say. I don't have what to say." So I said, "Maybe something short." So, the guest said very humbly, he said, "I don't know how to learn." Hashem says, "But maybe a Mishnah, maybe a Pasuk." The guest says, "I don't know any Mishnahs, I don't know any Psukim." He says, "Maybe a story that you heard in Cheder." Hashem said, the guest said the word story, he said, "I can tell you a story that happened by me. Do you want to hear it?" He says, "Of course, everybody wants to hear it." Okay. So this is yesterday, when you met me in the street, I was released from captivity by one of the feudal lords and the landlords, landowners in the area. He says, for a full year I was in jail. It was very scary, especially when I was in the jail, that there was, a big hole. Then I heard voices emanating from this, from this hole in the earth. And it didn't sound like voices of humans. So I thought, maybe it's demons, and I was afraid even to move. In the last week, I became courageous, and I shouted out, "Can you hear me?" So I heard the voice coming from the earth. He said, "Yes, we can hear." So I asked them, "Are you people, or are you demons?" They said, "Demons." So I said, "What is your minig? why is this that all the days of the week you're crying, and Shabbos comes, Erev Shabbos comes, and you start laughing? What is this? What's going on? So they said, we are demons that get our life force from one chassid. This chassid is a big tzaddik. He fasts all Yom Chol, and mamash, he lives the entire week without eating, without drinking. It's just, when El Shabbos comes and he's supposed to break his fast, because his stomach is shrunk, he can't eat, rich food of meat or fish or whatever. So that's why he makes kiddush on wine, and immediately his wife gives him a glass of milk. And he would drink the milk, and about half an hour later, he'll be able to eat his Suda Shabbos, fish and meat and whatever. And he says, we are afraid that this tzaddik, because he's such a big tzaddik, will prevent us from getting our chas. That's why we're crying. And Lil Shabbos, we do everything to create an argument between him and his wife. Every time that his wife gives him the glass, we're trying our best that a little bit of the milk in the glass will get spilt. So he'll become upset, he'll become angry, and there'll be an argument. And then when the milk gets spilt, he shouts at his wife, I'm fasting all week long and you're spilling some of the milk that I'm drinking. And the story repeats itself. And he scolds her and threatens her that if the milk will get spilt again, he's going to rov. He says that all the Yom Chol during the week were very worried maybe you won't be able to spill the milk. But whenever Lil Shabbos comes and he scolds her, we know that we succeeded. And we're very happy. And because from that argument, is created a big avera of a problem Shlom Bayis. So I heard, these words of these demons, and I asked, why Dafka this week you cried in the Yom Chol more than usual, and Lil Shabbos you laughed so uproariously. So the demon said, because this week there was a big danger to our merry existence. This chassid decided to do tshuva and stop arguing with his wife, and decided that she shouldn't have that task of giving him the milk. He decided this milk he's going to prepare himself, and to put it in the cabinet so it'll be ready for Shabbos. So Lil Shabbos itself, he will take it himself. So we shouldn't have any reason to be upset with his wife. And that way the Shabbos will pass, pleasantly. So, Friday, noontime, he prepared the glass of milk, put it in the cabinet, finished Achonis, talking to mikveh, went to shul, daven, and his wife, finished her preparation for Shabbos. In the middle, she hears that they are selling firewood half price. So immediately, she went to find her wallet. In the meantime, the wood sellers kept on lowering the price until they came to a quarter of a price. And they already banged on her door so she could hurry up. So immediately the wife, she went to the cabinet where her wallet is, and while opening the cabinet, the glass of milk fell down, and the milk was spilled, and the glass shattered. The chassid came, home, sameach. This Shabbos is going to be no argument. It's going to be only ahava and harmony. He said shalom aleichem, made kiddush. He went to the cabinet to take the milk. It's not there. Then he sees that everything was spilled. So I said, well, what happened? So she started apologizing, stammering, but he couldn't take it anymore. For him, it was, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And he says, now, he started screaming, he says, now everything is clear. It's clear to me that you spilled that glass of milk deliberately. Until now, I had some kind of a suffix that maybe Taka, you're not guilty. Now I understand and I know that you always did it deliberately. On Sunday, we're going to the Rav and we're going to give you a get. So all week long, the demons say, we was like so troubled. How can we, be saved from these plans of this tzaddik to, not to, to present himself quarreling with his wife? So after this great success on the Shabbos, we laughed and laughed and laughed. This is because we were so successful. We were able to assure the continuation of our existence. Well, the guest finished his story. The Baal Shem Tov kept on singing, and night came, and usually it used to be Shalshudas. So there were no candles. There weren't lit any candles until night fell. And Motzei Shabbos came, and Baal Shem Tov said, light the lights, the candles in the Beis Medrash, and they saw the Talmud that was sitting on the right-hand side of the Baal Shem Tov, fainting. Fainted, it's like he lost consciousness. It came about that this Talmud, that's the one that sat right next to the Baal Shem Tov, was this tzaddik that the guest was talking about. That's the story of the Baal Shem Tov for this week. So as we said, today they learned the Maisa of the burger and the pauper. And where the burger becomes, so his wife is being kidnapped by a general, and the burger goes ahead and he saves her. And on the way back to their country, people ran after them. They were searched for, so they hid in 7 places of water: a river, a fountain, a mikveh. These 7, and each one of those places, the 7 waters, the woman, she saw what kind of Mesiras Nefesh that her neighbor, it wasn't her husband, her neighbor had for her, and being that she was, she withstood the nisayon, that with the general she didn't sin, and with him also, this proximity, and they withstood the nisayon. So she swore that if any good that's coming to her, any kind of, so maybe she has some kind of a mazel, whatever it is, she says, if he wants it, it'll go right to him. It's no problem. Even she'll become, she'll remain poor as before. And these 7 waters, 7 sources of water, these are all levels of purification. And in the mikvahs there are different levels. There's a mikveh, there's the sea, there's the river, there's the mayim, and so forth and so on. And there's higher and higher and higher. So we have to understand, just those places were places of refuge. In the lore, in the rest of the lore, also in this particular Maisa, at the very end, all the imposters try to take the princess for a wife, and she says, "Yeah, you're very special, you're very good, but you didn't endure the 7 waters. You didn't go through these 7 waters." So it becomes part of the Bris of the Lore. It's a very known thing that In Breslov, they always say you have to go through the seven waters. Well, the seven waters, went over him, which means going through trials and tribulations and difficulties and whatever. And so it needs to be understood what is the Indian of the mikveh. So is it, a safe haven like it was for them, or is it a trouble? Is it a place of tribulation? The answer is that it's both. In fact, any test that the person goes through in his life is an elevation, is a mikveh. In fact, in Chabad, I think the Mittel Rebbe says somewhere that Mei Noach, the Mabul, the deluge, was in fact HaKadosh Baruch Hu toveling the world in a mikveh. The world is unacceptable. Up to that point, says tovel in the mikveh. So he says, Mei Noach, this is the torrents that the person goes through in his life. It's a mikveh. All the tests, all the trials and tribulations that we go through are a mikveh. This entire life is one big mikveh. So when the idea is, when we are struggling through whatever it is that each of us is struggling with, we have to understand that it's not only whether we are successful at withstanding the nisayon, coming up on top or coming out on bottom. Obviously, better if we come out on top. And the more we remember that the trials of this world are l'maisa mikveh, you understand that even if I wasn't successful in this particular nisayon, I can always get back to Kodesh Baruch Hu and talk to him about it and bring the matter up. I can always go to the mikveh. I can always come back and start again. Because this is what mikveh is. Mikveh is a restart. It's like the restart button. So, HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'ezrat Hashem will be mezakeh us to remember v'khu li truma, to give some of the li, for me, and give it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, if things go against me and things seems to go against me, things seems to go the way that I don't like them to go, v'khu li truma, give some of the li to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Especially when you feel sad, even if you feel pain, physical pain. You feel fear. Why do I feel fear? Why do I feel pain? Why is it? I feel pain because something is painful, but the harshest suffering, anguish from any kind of pain, physical or spiritual, is exacerbated by the li. The fact that everything is for me. Everything, I'm the only thing that counts. I'm the only one that counts. So a little suffering becomes huge suffering because I'm not willing to suffer. If whatever it is, you have to daven for it. It's the only way it's ever going to work. If you ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to help you, that when time of trial comes, and they come, B'ezrat Hashem, Halav should all be small tests, but whenever they come, I should have the presence of mind to give up that li, that to me, that mine. That insatiable thirst for me. And give it to Kodesh Baruch. That's the truma. With this, you give it back to Hashem. Let's take a quick look at Sichos Haran. We have one that is extremely enigmatic. I'll just take a quick look here. Where is it? Can't find it. No. No, I don't want. Here we go. Okay. Tonight we're talking about Sicha 107. Is Kuf Zayin. It seems to be, very opaque. What does Rabbeinu want here? Esther beinoni soiso lo aruko v'lo ktsara. The Gemara says about Esther that she was middle, average. She wasn't tall and she wasn't short. So, Bichlal, all the description of Esther in the Gemara basically gives us a description of a woman that was not especially beautiful. And so, but she had a lot of chen, because Baruch Hu gave her chen. So she was beautiful for everybody who saw her, but by in and of herself, they said, she was pale. She was. She was very nondescript, as it were. She wasn't long, she wasn't short, she was a. And Rabbeinu says, "Vayin that Chazal said in Maseches Megillah, b'shvil tznius shoyso b'rachel, for the modesty that was in Rachel, zochsa v'yotza mimena Shaul. She was zoiche, and Shaul, King Shaul, came from her. ובשביל צניעות שהיו בשאול, זוכו ויוצא ממנו אסתר מלכה. Because of his own modesty, so he was Zecha and Esther Malka came from him. And he says like this, and Berachel is written what Berachel bitcha ktano. She's a small, a small daughter. And Shaul it says, Mishich Movamala Gavoa Mikol Ha'am. He is, his shoulder was taller than everybody else in the nation. He was the highest one. Esther Mamutza ben Shaul v'Rachel. Esther is midway between, she's the median between Shaul and Rachel. But Binonisos, she was middleway. On the face of it, it's difficult to understand. What is Rabbeinu trying to teach us? What is he telling us? Let's take a look at what is the tznius that was in Rachel. What is the tznius that was in Shaul? And what is the tznius that was in Esther? In all these cases, the tznius of Rachel, tznius of Rachel was that she was supposed to be the wife of Yaakov Avinu, and her father deceived Yaakov Avinu and gave Yaakov Avinu Leah, the first wife. And so the thing is, Yaakov Avinu suspected that Lavan was planning some kind of a sleight of hand. So he gave Rachel to Simonim. They had these signs that like this, he would know who she is in the dark. So she saw that Leah, is being taken to him. She says, now my sister's going to be embarrassed. So she gave the Simonim to Leah. And Yaakov Avinu found out that he married Leah only in the morning time. Shaul HaMelech, Shmuel HaNavi made him king. He didn't tell anyone. He just continued, just same old, until they came to a, the Shaul HaMelech, Shmuel HaNavi told him, you come to the celebration, it's going to be a zevach, and come to the Suda, and Shmuel went there with all the people. They wanted a king, and Shmuel looks for Shaul HaMelech, and he's nowhere to be found. So started searching him, and he found him hiding. He was hiding away. So this is the humility of Shaul HaMelech. And Esther Amalka, Esther, and Esther Mageret Moladato, she doesn't say, where she's coming from. We have a very different kind of istaklos on the in of tznius. There's a very interesting story about Rachel and Leah, in that a little bit afterwards, a couple of parshas after, actually the same parsha. Reuven goes to the field and he finds jasmines, and that's what Rashi said they were. So Rachel tells, asks Leah, maybe would you mind giving me some of your son's jasmines? So Leah turns to her with this most inexplicable outburst. And she says to her, is it not enough that you have taken my husband from me? You also want my son jasmines? This is stunning. What about Leah, a Neviah, with a prophetess, right? Rachel is the original wife of Yaakov Avinu. He served Lavan for 7 years, explicitly, for Rachel. At night, Rachel gives the simonim to her sister. And Leah turns around and says, is it not enough that you took my husband from me? Because once he married Rachel, his mainstay, his bed, Yaakov Avinu's bed, was always by Rachel's tent. So Leah obviously, she wasn't happy about that. But she gave you the simonim, and you turn. She's supposed to be Yaakov's wife. He worked for her. And you're telling her, is it not enough to take my husband from me? What's going on? Get a deeper understanding of what is the tznius of Rachel, the humbleness, the humility of Rachel Imenu. It wasn't just that she gave her sister the simonim. What were the simonim? What was the signs between Yaakov Avinu and Rachel Imenu? The answer is that Yaakov Avinu told Rachel in secret that in his house, after they eat bread, they bench. At the night of the wedding, when Rachel realized that Lavan is going to take, Leah, she just told her like in a story. She didn't tell her she's giving her the simonim. During the Suda, she told her, she camouflaged the fact that she was giving the simonim by telling him, interesting thing that Yaakov told me that in his household, After they eat a suda, they eat bread, they make birkas hamazon. In fact, at Midrashim it says that it happened a lot sooner, because while all those 7 years that Yaakov Avinu was working, it was customary for the future chosin to send gifts for his intended wife. So he was sending gifts to Rachel, and Lavan was giving them all to Leah. And Rachel never said a thing. 7 years. All the gifts that Yaakov is sending for Rachel, Lavan is giving to Leah. He's telling everybody that Leah is the Kala. Rachel never says a word. For 7 years she lives like that, never saying a word. And at the end of the 7 years, when she realizes that her sister is going to be embarrassed, she let it slip without ever letting her know that these were the signals between her and Yaakov. Just interesting thing, by the way, that's what they do. Leah never knew that these were the signals. Leah was under the impression that Yaakov, is her husband, his intended husband. For 7 years, Lavan made it clear that Leah is the Kala. Rachel never said a word throughout that 7 years, and gave this samanim to Leah. And also, when Leah burst at her, she never mentions anything. That's the humility of Esther. Of Rachel. You could possibly say that that kind of humbleness existed by Shaul before he was king. But once he was king, things changed. That humility went against him. He listened to the people, he didn't annihilate Amalek, and as a result, he lost the Melucha. His fight against David HaMelech was, to the bitter end. And in between them, there's Esther. Esther she's a queen. She's chosen to be a queen. So she's like Shaul, royalty. But on the other hand, she doesn't say anything. She's like Rachel. After she's a king. So Esther, possibly, she's midway between Rachel and Shaul, as it were. Shaul is... I find this one of the most astounding expression of human humbleness. Rachel Imenu. Now it is very clear why, there was, when the time of the Chorban Mikdash, Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to finish Am Yisrael, and nobody could break this, the seal then. Nobody could, Avraham Avinu couldn't do it, Yitzchak couldn't do it, Yaakov couldn't do it, Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't break that kind of the Gzera. Until Rachel comes. And Rachel says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is greater? Who is a bigger tzaddik? Who is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu or flesh and blood? We're talking about here the Am Yisrael was serving over the Zohar. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that's the end of them. So, what's the HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Baruch Hu says, I have let a strange woman into a second wife, my sister, into my house as the first wife. I never said a word. Not before and not after. She never said a word, not to Yaakov Avinu, and not to Leah. The whole thing remained a secret throughout her life. And he says, and I was able to withstand that, and you cannot withstand, your children, serving idols, putting somebody else together with you. Baruch who says, Yesh Sachol Amalek. He says, Rachel, don't cry, Mini kolech mi bechi. V'nach mi dimrak. Yes, Sachal Peulatech. There is merit, there is schar to what you've done. V'shava voling vulam. B'ezrat Hashem, children will come back to their borders. Kodesh Baruch Hu, B'ezrat Hashem, to Mizakeas, to Geula Shlema, B'ezrat Hashem, B'korav Mamish. B'schus all the tzaddikim, says Rachel Imeinu, so the Baal Shem HaKodesh, so the Torah Kadosh, so the Mishkan, and everything, B'ezrat Hashem. We will meet on Monday night, Premises, B'ezrat Hashem.